Report Story. Chapter 3. Izuku glanced at the dark windows, his pencil-lead tapping lightly on his paper. It was far too quiet in the common area with just him and Iida studying there in silence. Everyone else had already gone upstairs to get ready to go to bed. Usually there'd be a few of his classmates lingering downstairs chatting, watching something, or playing a video game. Although Kaminari had bought a new board game, so he supposed they were playing it with him in his room. He looked back to his work, scribbling the answer to one he'd solved a few minutes ago in his head, his mind elsewhere, namely Ochako, as it had been of late. After their wilderness survival training, he'd been thinking about her a lot. Well, worrying was more like it. She was as happy and bubbly as always, but often enough Izuku noticed she wore that hiding smile, the one from the mountain, and from the sports festival. Something was bothering her, more now than before. Or maybe he was just seeing it now. He wanted to talk to her about it, whatever it was, and had tried and failed to get her to open up. She just smiled and waved it off, to the point where he felt like he was imagining things. But the memory of her weeping with her back to him was too vivid for it to be constructed. He swallowed nervously. He'd been concerned that he wasn't being a good enough friend to her, one that she could trust. She was his first friend at UA, he pretty much owed her that much. And yet, now that he was trying to be better, she just seemed to pull away more, keeping him at a comfortable arm's length away. Izuku's fingers scratched at the eraser shavings on the table, frowning to himself. Maybe if they could have a real conversation sometime, but she was avoiding that, letting her false smile fall into place and shutting him out. Maybe he wasn't being direct enough. Asking outright was different than trying to segue into it. "You don't have to worry about me, I'm okay," he recalled her words from that night on the mountain as she cried. Am I a bad friend for not noticing until now? His stomach sank at the thought. With a sigh, he put his mind more fully to the work in front of him. It was dark when Ochako got back to the dorms, with only minutes left until curfew. "Welcome back," he said with a genuine smile, despite the swirling feelings inside him. She returned the smile brightly, and he half wondered if he really could tell the difference between her real smiles and fake ones. "Good to be back," she replied. "Uraraka, you must be more careful. We have less than 10 minutes until curfew. Had you been out later, I would have needed to inform our teacher to begin searching for you," Iida said sternly, but they both knew it came from care. Ochako laughed, scratching the back of her neck. "You're right, sorry about that. I just got caught up talking with my parents. Won't happen again." She came over and dropped her backpack to the ground, slumping into the chair beside Iida. "Speaking of my parents, I have a favor to ask you guys." Izuku blinked, exchanging a look with Iida. Sure. What do you need?" Ochako sighed, her face turning a tad pinker. "Well, my parents have been curious to meet some of my friends. So I was wondering if you guys would wanna come over to their house for dinner next Sunday. I was thinking of inviting Suyu and Todoroki too, to keep it small, ya know." Sure, that shouldn't be a problem," Izuku replied, feeling nervous for some unknown reason. He'd never met Ochako's parents before, but he'd seen pictures of them in her room. The distinct memory of the sports festival came to him as he'd heard through the door Ochako's side of her conversation with her father. His insides nodded at the reminder. Promoted stories. You'll also like Izuku's Harem Academia 190K 1.8 Qst. Read. Hurt cuz I love you to death Izuocha. Ha. 0.8.9K 141 Class 1A is now Class 2A and is working to be better heroes due to events that had happened before. Deku has gotten strong feelings toward Uraraka during the summer as Mirko X Shy Male Reader 173K 1.1 Key. Don't own MHA. I hope you enjoy the story I made. Not all heroes wear capes. Some just have 8.43K 1.4 Kelo. Everybody. This is a suicidal, depressed Deku book with Dadmik. Will their bond grow? Will Mike fuck up? Will Izuku try to kill himself? Find out yourself. Number 1 Radio, Convicted Hearts 3910 like my other story but ILI longer. Free. Oni Shots 150K3K. This is a collections of free X readers. Requests on this are now closed. Her prince from the underworld half demon is 0.26.1K462. It's basically the same story as my succubus Momo X Deku story. I know, real original, but hey, now you guys get a Deku from the other side of the tracks. I would be honored, Uraraka. Please tell your parents thank you for the invitation, Iida said, pulling Izuku from his thoughts. She smiled again. You won't have to be so formal with them, but I'll let them know. After that, she stood and looped her backpack over her shoulder. Thanks, you guys. I'll let you know more details later, Kay. As she turned to leave, Izuku called out to her before he even knew what he wanted to say. Uraraka. She turned back, blinking at him with pink still staining her cheeks. His mind froze, thoughts stopping in their tracks. This was half the reason he couldn't make any progress on this front. He often just didn't have a clue what to say. Thanks for the invitation. Sure, she said, nodding before heading off to the elevator. Izuku frowned as he looked back down to his workbook, tapping his pencil to the paper without really seeing the equations. This was the first time Ochako had asked for them to come to her home. Yes, she'd told the two of them about her family's financial situation, but he supposed she hadn't wanted to share it with them firsthand. The three of them had already been friends for over a year, and an invitation to each other's families hadn't been a thing so far. He tapped the pencil once more. Is she reaching out now? What's different now? He didn't know. Midoriya, are you alright? Iida asked, pulling Izuku from his thoughts. Yeah, why? He replied. You've been staring at your page for over 2 minutes, Iida said matter-of-factly. Izuku blinked, not realizing the passage of time. Oh, I guess I was just thinking. You seem to be perplexed. Might I ask why? He looked up, then shrugged. I guess I'm a little confused by Uraraka's offer, he said, feeling like he wasn't explaining well enough. I mean, it's a very kind invitation, but she's never really wanted us to see a lot of her personal life before. Iida smiled. It's true that in the past few months we've all grown closer as friends. Perhaps that's why. I don't think there's anything to worry about, Midoriya. Tell that to my overly worried brain, Izuku thought offhandedly. Maybe to return the favor, Iida continued. We could all introduce each other to our own parents. I'm quite sure my family would be happy with such an event. My mom too, Izuku replied, then he stopped remembering. Shoot, I think I was supposed to have dinner with her next Sunday. Perhaps Uraraka can reschedule. Iida suggested. No, it's fine. I wouldn't want to appease everyone else. I'll just let my mom know we should do it another time, he said, pulling out his phone to check. The picture on the home screen made him pause as it typically did, bringing a small smile onto his face. It was a photo he'd taken in his mother's kitchen with her smiling happily, standing beside All Might, his arm around her shoulders. It was a recent thing, his mom and All Might spending more time with each other, beginning around the end of his first year. And though it had been bizarre at first, he couldn't have been more happy for them now. For one thing, this was All Might, the man he'd looked up to and admired for his whole life. How could he not be happy his hero was dating his own mother? The other thing was his mom. She'd gotten divorced from Izuku's father when he was very young. He barely remembered the man, and only knew his face from pictures. She'd been alone for the entire time she'd raised him. So to see her open herself up and find happiness in a new relationship, he truly couldn't be happier. Especially considering it was All Might. He kept his smile to himself and he opened message thread between the three of them and began typing. Hey, is it alright if we reschedule next Sunday's dinner for another day? Even though it was late, he knew his mother stayed up past his dorm's curfew, and he tried to remember to tell her good night, as he knew that was something she was waiting for. Sure enough, a message from her popped up only a minute after his. Sure, sweetie, smiley face. Did something come up? Yeah, he started typing. My friend invited a few of us in the class to go to her parents' house for dinner. I have short class days on Saturdays, so maybe this Saturday instead. That's fine, dear. Have a good time. Thanks, Mom, he replied before locking his phone. He was about to put his phone away when a text from All Might stayed his hand. Which friend, might I ask? Izuku swallowed, feeling awkward for some reason. Uraraka's. Her parents wanted to meet some of her friends apparently. Young Uraraka is a wonderful girl, isn't she? All Might texted back. Izuku smiled, pleasant warmth in his chest. Yeah, she's really great, smiley face. Please bring her over for dinner here sometime. I wanna meet her. Inko interjected. Izuku laughed quietly. Iida and I were just talking about visiting all of each other's families, so I'll definitely invite her too. Wonderful. Inko sent. I will see you both tomorrow. Good night. All Might texted after a minute or two of radio silence. Sleep well, Inko replied. Izuku smiled again and tucked his phone into his pocket. Curfew has passed now, shall we call it a night before lights out, Midoriya? Iida asked, shutting his workbook. Sure, sounds good, Izuku replied, packing up his own things as well. Dash 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 dot. The train clattered as it sped down the tracks. Izuku glanced out the window at the sun. Because it was getting closer to summer, sunset was getting later and later. It was past 6 already and the sun had just barely began to go down. He shrugged, glancing around his traveling companions. Todoroki was seated next to him with Iida across from the two of them, Ochako and Tsuyu across the aisle in the other seats. He let his eyes stay on Ochako for a moment longer before sitting back in his chair. Before she'd seemed happy about inviting them all over, but all day leading up to it she simply looked uncomfortable. He couldn't help but worry, which honestly felt like his fallback when it came to her as of late. Perhaps she'd done it out of some kind of obligation and didn't really want them to come. He bit his lip, not wanting to intrude, but they were all on their way. There really wasn't any turning back at this point. His mind turned to the last few weeks. Maybe he'd been going a bit too far with her. After all, he did want to help. He wanted to be a better friend to her, as she'd been more distant before their survival training. But at times she seemed downright uncomfortable with him. Usually it was normal and pleasant, but sometimes she was so anxious and jumpy, he didn't really know what to do. It had gotten to the point where worrying about her and thinking about what he should say was cutting into his sleep, keeping him awake and leaving him exhausted for the next day's work. At that moment, he yawned, as if his body was trying to prove a point. Maybe he really was going too far, pushing her too much. Maybe she didn't want his help, that much was apparent in the mountains. He thought, recalling her poorly hidden hurt and tears. But would it make him a bad friend if he didn't try? Trying and butting in when he hadn't been asked was how he'd helped Todoroki and Iida, and then Kota and Eri later on. Could he forgive himself if she was going through a hard time and he did nothing? Midoriya, Todoroki said suddenly. He blinked, looking up. Yeah. You were spacing out. Iida said your name twice. Izuku flushed. "Ah, sorry, Iida. It's quite alright. I was just wondering how dinner went with your mother last night." Iida replied. Oh. Izuku started, jarring himself from his worried thoughts. It was really great. It's nice to go home once in a while, you know. Iida smiled. That's true. I spoke with my own mother and she said I could bring friends over whenever was convenient for us, so I thought we could arrange a time. Weekends are usually best, Todoroki said. We have a test on Saturday, so maybe next Sunday. Tsuyu interjected from the other seat. Yeah, that sounds great. Ochako replied, pumping a fist into the air. Iida sent his smile in Ochako's direction. Your dinner party idea seems to be a success, he said happily. Ochako flushed, leaning back into her chair, a smile still wide on her face. Yeah, it was more my dad's idea, but I'm glad we're having fun with it. My sister wants you all to come over as well, Todoroki said quietly. Izuku bit his lip. He knew things were complicated at the Todoroki household, with how Endeavor was, and the tensions that stemmed from that. But Todoroki had told him it was a little better now, that Endeavor was less, looming since All Might's retirement, and since his fight with that Nomu a while back, the one that had left him scarred. He was trying to make some reparations. Even so, he imagined it was awkward. he would feel even worse intruding on their family like that. She thought we could have dinner in one of the dining halls at the hospital with my mother. Will that be okay? Suyu asked. Todoroki nodded. She was happy when I told her about it. Well, it's settled then, Iida said proudly. We'll do my family next week, and the Todorokis the week after. It's too bad we can only do one a week, Suyu said. My younger siblings got really excited when I asked. So did my mom, Izuku said, scratching at his face. Iida nodded. I'm sure we can work out a schedule that will work for everyone. But we must focus on our studies first and foremost. I'm sure each of our families will understand our limited amount of time. That's true, Izuku replied, looking out the window once more, stomach clenching at Iida's words. Limited time, he thought warily, glancing down at the scars on his hand. Sure, he could bring out a higher percentage of one for all, but he was nowhere near 100% yet. And with the League of Villains, and other malicious groups doing their best to shape the world into crime-ridden anarchy, and without All Might, he could feel the lack of that pillar every day, and he was getting more and more impatient with himself. Now arriving at Bespinu Station. Please watch your step. Thank you very much, the automated voice announced over the loudspeaker. Ochako stood as the train came to a stop. That's us. My parents' house isn't too far away to walk from here. As they walked, she seemed a lot more chipper as she chatted with Iida and Suyu, smiling and talking excitedly about her parents and being home. It was uplifting to see, but Izuku couldn't help as the concern plagued him once more. He knew he was focusing on this far too much, but it wasn't like he could just drop it. The problem, whatever it was, wasn't solved yet. Something's wrong, isn't it? Todoroki asked suddenly from beside him. Izuku blinked. Why do you say that? He shrugged, glancing at the group a few paces ahead of them. You keep looking at Uraraka all worried. She seems fine to me, so what are you thinking is wrong? Izuku started, biting his lip. Honestly, he didn't realize he was being so transparent. Maybe that's why she's been uncomfortable. You're being a creep. Well, she just After a moment, Todoroki spoke again. Maybe it's her business if something's wrong, he said quietly. You have a problem with minding your own business, Midoriya. Izuku flushed, but he knew that was true. It's something he'd always been aware of, but that was what gave him the opportunity to be a hero in the first place, butting in when he really had no right to. I know I do, but I have a hard time letting something go if I think something's wrong. Todoroki eyed him, softness in his face. That worked for me and Iida, and that kid at camp, but I think that approach isn't always gonna work for you. He looked down, stuffing his hands into his pockets awkwardly. You're probably right, but that doesn't mean I won't try. I just know sometimes people don't want help that's pushed on them, he replied quietly. Izuku bit his lip, Todoroki's words almost stinging. That was true. Helping with physical danger as a hero was different than personal problems. Forcing emotional help on someone who didn't want it. That tended to make people shut down even more. Maybe that's why she's become more and more false with him. She was shutting him out because she was uncomfortable. He swallowed dryly, nodding. Why, you're right. So what will you do? Todoroki asked after a beat. Izuku started. I dunno. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Todoroki shrugged. Do you think you might be making a bigger deal of something than it really is? He brought his face up once more, watching Ochako as she chatted, a smile on her face. Behind her back, her fingers gripped at each other nervously. Maybe. Ochako had been right, the walk from the train station hadn't been long at all. Less than 15 minutes, which was much closer than his mother's apartment. He supposed the short walk made up for the longer train ride out of the city. They walked up to the house, and before Ochako could turn her key in the lock, the door whipped open to reveal what Izuku assumed were her parents. Welcome everyone, her father said. Come in, we were just working on getting dinner ready, her mother said excitedly, opening the door. You guys sure are joyful, Ochako muttered, a smile on her face, and Izuku was relieved to see her relax as her father tousled her hair, making it stick out oddly. When they were all inside, Ochako's father greeted each of them with a handshake. I'm Kenichi, and this is my wife Naomi. It's great to finally meet all of you. And to see you again, Tsuyu. Thanks for coming over, and all wish our Ochako would bring you kids around more. Ochako laughed. Dad, we've got a lot going on. You know that. Of course, sir, Iida replied, bowing his head. I apologize, as her friend, I should have taken more initiative to make sure such obligations were met, so it's an honor to be invited into your home. Kenichi blinked, then laughed, patting Iida heartily on the shoulder. You're Iida, yeah, I've heard about you. You really are so earnest. Iida nodded, a smile on his face. I do my utmost to be as genuine as I can be. That's great, kid. Make sure you stick to that. Thank you, sir, Iida exclaimed, looking touched. After Kenichi greeted everyone, he turned to Izuku, shook his hand firmly. You must be Midoriya. Yeah, nice to meet you, sir. Izuku replied with a smile. My Ochakos told me a lot about you, Kenichi said happily. Oh, right. Izuku replied, feeling his face warm a bit. Kenichi let him go and clapped his hands together. Well, why don't everyone get to know each other while we get some dinner cooked? We've got some board games we can play in the meantime, Naomi said, leading their group into the living room. Board games, Todoroki repeated quietly. And card games too, probably, Tsuyu replied to him. Yup, we got both. Ochako said, following them while sending a few nervous glances behind her at her father. Izuku wondered if she was okay. Before Izuku could follow, Kenichi dropped a hand on his shoulder, smiling wide. Hey Midoriya, wanna help me out with the grill? He blinked, but returned the smile. Yeah, sure, okay. Grab that bag of charcoal there, would ya? Yup, Izuku replied, picking up the bag and following Kenichi, not noticing the pallor which had come over Ochako's face. Kenichi poured some of the charcoal into the bottom of the grill, lighting it with some lighter fluid. So how'd you meet my daughter? Izuku blinked, recalling the day of the entrance exam. How she'd kept him from falling outside of the school, and then again as he was about to fall to his death. When we were taking the entrance exam, she kept me from tripping on our way in, he said, smiling at the memory. Ochako told me you saved her life, at the expense of your own points. Is that true? Kenichi said, glancing at him as the charcoal burned. He started a bit. Ah yeah. Ah yeah, he said, rubbing his neck. I mean, I saw that she was in trouble and I dunno, I couldn't just sit there and do nothing, he said, remembering that first time he'd used his quirk. What it had felt like as he watched her, pinned and scared, this person who'd been so nice to him for no reason other than he was there. He smiled, feeling warmed. My quirk manifested pretty late, so at that point I couldn't completely control it, so when I fell, she saved me again. Kenichi smiled. So tell me about yourself, Midoriya. Why is it you wanna be a hero? Izuku really wasn't surprised by the question. When new people found out he was in the UA Heroics department, that was a common question. Even so, it never got old to answer as rigor and determination always pumped him up from it. It's what I've always dreamed of, to be a cool hero who smiles in the face of danger, to protect and save people who can't protect themselves. Going to UA for 2 years, I've already had the opportunity to save people who were in trouble, and those times have been my most proud moments. That I get to see their smiling faces as they live the rest of their lives knowing they survived something terrible. Izuku looked up, his eyes bright. I want to be someone people can place their trust and hope in. When Kenichi didn't reply for a moment, Izuku flushed. Sorry, I was rambling. It's okay, kid, Kenichi replied, clapping a hand on his shoulder. I mean, wow, you really got some spirit to you. I'm feeling all inspired. Izuku laughed nervously. Thank you, sir. You know, I was kinda worried when Ochako said you were her friend, you know, after watching you fight in the sports festival. Yeah. I honestly thought you might be insane, but good to know you're not, Kenichi said with a laugh. Then he leaned in a bit, his eyebrow quirked. You're not, right? No, sir. Kenichi gestured at the door. And looks like you and Endeavor's kid get along well enough now. Yeah, Todoroki became my good friend because of that, actually. Funny how life works sometimes, huh? The glass door opened to show Ochako's mother holding out a plate of prepared skewers of yakitori. That grill ready for these yet? Sure is, thank you dear. Kenichi replied, taking the plate. Everything else is almost ready, just come in when those are done, she said, then sent a smile at Izuku before shutting the door again. It really is uncanny how much Ochako looks like her mom, he thought. Bringing up the sports festival got him thinking a little more. He looked down, thinking as Kenichi placed the skewers on the grill. The wilderness training hadn't been too long ago, only a few weeks. His leg was fine now, but it brought more concerns up to the surface, remembering the sports festival last year. That was the first time I noticed, he thought nervously. Ochako's false smile she puts forth, hiding her true feelings behind it. He still felt guilty, like there was something more he should do, as her friend, to support her when she felt like she had to hide. But he still had no idea no matter what he did, it didn't seem like enough. Hey, what's with the glum face? Kenichi asks, leaning against the patio rail. Izuku looked up, realizing this was as good of any person to talk to about this. Well, speaking of the sports festival, I feel like I should apologize. Kenichi laughed. It's fine, I don't think you're a crazed maniac anymore. No, not about that, he replied, looking for the right words. After Uraraka's match with Bakugo. It was a really rough match on her, and when I spoke to her afterward she seemed fine, smiling and laughing like it was nothing. And when I left, I'm sorry I overheard her calling you, and she was crying. You're apologizing for what exactly? Kenichi asked, his face softer than before. Izuku shook his head. Well, along with that, we just had a wilderness survival training in the mountains, right? We were in the same group and I got hurt during it. I could tell she was worried about it, but she pretended she wasn't. And I dunno, it felt like she didn't trust me with her feelings and He stopped, trying to figure out his words. I dunno, I'm not sure what to do to let her know she can trust me. I mean, I'm trying to show her that I can be, but it's not. I'm not sure what I should be doing differently. Kenichi glanced into the glass door at the sight of Ochako laughing with her friends and mother. Her smile was bright and giddy, as if nothing could be wrong in the world. My daughter has always been like that, keeping herself to herself and all she wants to fix her own problems on her own and not burden the people around her, Kenichi said softly. I'm not sure if she really talks to anyone about her issues outside of me and her mom. Izuku looked down, feeling awkward. I wasn't trying to impose. That's not what I'm saying, Kenichi continued. I'm saying I'm glad she's got friends trying to look out for her. He turned the food over as he spoke again. You're worried you're not doing enough. Don't be you being observant and concerned as you are as more than a lot of her friends growing up did. But if you want to do something to prove your trustworthiness to her, ask. When you notice her holding herself up, talk to her about it directly. Simple as that. Izuku nodded, listening intently. Kenichi looked up at him again, softness in his face. She may not want to talk about it, and that's fine. I'd appreciate if you didn't push her. But just putting the truth in the spotlight, and letting her know it's okay to talk about with you, eventually she may be able to open up more to you. Izuku looked up with a smile. Thanks, Uraraka-san. This food's probably about ready. Should we join the others? Okay. Chapter 4. Ochako could see through the glass door her father talking to Izuku, which was most definitely not what they had agreed on. She'd agreed to bring her friends over so that her parents could meet them, not so her dad could interrogate Izuku one-on-one. She swallowed nervously, looking back to the cards gripped in her hand. Draw 2, Tsuyu said from beside her. Ochako blinked. All right. Wait, seriously. She cried, realizing she already had almost 10 cards in her hand. Ribbit, Tsuyu croaked with such a sweet smile it was impossible to be annoyed at her. And now it's green. Todoroki all but slammed a green 5 onto the pile. It kept switching to red or yellow before it got to me. Sorry, that's all I had. Ochako replied. Now it feels like I've got everything. Ribbit ribbit, Suyu chortled happily. Oh hush, Ms. Draw 4 2 times in a row, Ochako laughed, sticking her tongue out. Suyu shrugged. Luck of the draw. Sorry, about that. Uno. Iida cried for the third time, holding up a single card triumphantly. You dropped one on the floor, Todoroki said nonchalantly. No. Iida cried, scrambling to pick up the blue 3. Ochako snickered quietly, knowing she saw Todoroki nudge his own fallen card over with his toe. If he was cheating to win, he was failing, but cheating solely to mess with Iida was another thing entirely. They exchanged discreet mischievous looks. False alarm means you draw 2 more, Todoroki replied, repressing a smile. It was all Ochako could do to keep from snorting. Iida pulled 2 more off the pile. How could I have been so careless? Ochako laughed, laying down another card after Suyu. Despite all the fun, she found herself glancing out the door once again. Her dad was still talking to Izuku. She could feel her throat go dry as she wondered what they were talking about. Maybe she could go out there and, what? It'd be too awkward for whatever excuse she made to intervene, and she doubted her poker face would hold up under that pressure. Izuku would be all confused, and she'd be embarrassed, and her dad would be right in the middle of it, and their game was still going in. Hey, could I snag Ochako away from your game to help me out in the kitchen? Naomi came to stand by the table, a smile on her face. Ochako felt like she was about to cry happy tears at such precise timing. Of course, Suyu replied with a smile. Do you require any more assistance, ma'am? Iida asked emphatically. Naomi waved his suggestion off. No, there's really not much else to do, but thank you, Iida. Ochako smirked and dropped her cards on the table. I'm out first, which means I win. That is not how the rules of the game go. Iida cried after her. Uraraka wins first, Todoroki said with a small grin, probably having far too much fun at Iida's expense. Sorry Iida, you were close. Ochako smiled as she followed her mom back into the kitchen. The rice was set to warm in the cooker while there were vegetables simmering on the stove and gyoza in the steamer. I can do the dishes, if you need, Ochako said, beginning to roll up her sleeves. Naomi stirred the vegetables. In a bit, I really just wanted to spend a bit of time alone with my daughter. Ochako blinked, then laughed. Mom, you could have just asked, my friends wouldn't mind. I know, Naomi replied, setting down her cooking chopsticks before smooshing Ochako into a hug. But I wanted to be sneaky. Ochako rolled her eyes as she returned hug heartily. This was definitely something she missed living in the dorms, her mother's encompassing embraces. Really, no one else could measure up when it came to the loving warmth that Naomi seemed to exude. Ochako felt herself longing to not let go for the whole time she was home. Midori is adorable, by the way. Mom, Ochako cried, stuffing her face into Naomi's shoulder. I'm serious. Did you see those precious freckles? And such a sweet smile, Naomi laughed as Ochako pulled away to cover her face. Mom, stop. Oh come on, honey. You haven't had a crush since little you when you were 5. I'm just having a bit of fun, She smiled brightly, stirring the food once more. Ochako sighed, leaning against the counter. I bet Daddy's having way too much fun out there too. Naomi leaned next to her, straightening out her apron. He just wanted to meet him, sweetie. Get to know his character a bit. He's not gonna embarrass you or Midoriya, I promise. Ochako looked at her skeptically. You sure about that? Absolutely, she replied. He wanted to know more about him and his goals and all that. You think your dad's gonna be disappointed? Swallowing, she stared at her slippers, feeling warmth in her cheeks. Disappointed by Izuku's character and goals? Absolutely not, she replied firmly. Deka Midoriya is one of the most driven and pure-hearted people out there. And he puts every ideal he has into action. It's been incredible to watch him soar. She trailed off, feeling a mixture of pride for him, and embarrassment too. But she always felt the need to praise him to people who didn't know who he was and what he was trying to do. I don't think anyone could be disappointed by him. Naomi smiled playfully, making Ochako nervous. What? She asked warily. Deck, Naomi said, her tone matching her smile. Huh, you started to say, Deck. Is that a nickname? Oh yeah. Ochako blushed again. Yeah, Deku. That was something he was called before to be made fun of, but when I first met him I thought it was his name. Anyway, it kinda sounds like, I can do it. Ya know. I told him that and he told me to keep calling him by that name. Ochako said hesitantly, a small smile on her face at the memory. He even made it his hero name because of what I said. When Ochako looked up again, Naomi was grinning, her hands clasping her face. Honey, that is the sweetest thing I've ever heard. Ochako turned away, her face feeling like it was burning. Anyway, do you think the food's about done yet? Naomi nodded. Probably. Want me to check on them or do you wanna? And no. You should. I'll just finish up in here, Ochako replied as she tugged at her hair nervously. Her mother smiled knowingly, then leaned forward, pressing a kiss to her daughter's head. You're all right, sweetie. Don't worry too much, okay? Ochako shrugged. Easier said than done, I think. It's fine to take it at your own pace. You don't have to feel rushed. You've got a lot on your plate, Naomi continued, grasping Ochako's hand lovingly. Your feelings are yours, and you can control what you do with them and when. Ochako swallowed, feeling emotion begin to choke her up. Thanks, Mama. The sound of the glass door sliding open caught both of their attention. Ochako turned to see her father coming in with steaming plate of charred meat, Izuku trailing close behind. Food's ready, right love? Kenichi called. Naomi smiled, squeezing Ochako's hand once more before poking out of the kitchen. Yup, all good on my end. I hope you're all ready to eat your fill cuz we got a feast ready. Dinner went smoothly and easily, but she pretty much knew it would. Her parents, for all their stresses and worries, tended to be fairly easygoing people. Her mother attributed it to just being used to it, so they were past the point of letting stress slow them down. Ochako scooped another bite of rice into her mouth, considering that approach as her parents chatted easily with her friends. As they sat around the table, laughing and having an overall good time, Ochako felt herself relax more and more. Nothing seemed that off about Izuku since he'd come in, so hopefully that meant her dad hadn't said anything weird or awkward to him. He was smiling with everyone else, enjoying the food and the company. He was a bit on the quieter side, but Ochako couldn't tell if that was normal Deku behavior or if something was off. Regardless, she decided to let it go and finish her meal, trying to release any anxiety she was having over it before long. It was time to go so they could return to school and have time to get back and ready for bed before the curfew. Ochako found herself frowning as her parents bid them all farewell. Since moving into the dorms, it was always sad to leave her home. She hugged them both tight as they embraced her, wishing she didn't have to let go. When they did, her mom shoved plastic bag full of various living necessities into her hands. Call us more, okay, dad said with one last squeeze on the doorstep. Sure, I will, she replied, managing a smile. Naomi reached out, tugging lightly on a lock of her hair. You want me to cut your hair next time? It's getting longer than usual. Ochako shrugged. Actually, I was thinking of growing it out for the time being. See if I like it, ya know. Okay, she replied, pulling her hand away with a smile. Thank you very much for your hospitality. Iida exclaimed with a polite bow. It was fun to visit again, thanks, Suyu smiled brightly. Just make sure you come back soon. Naomi said with a laugh. It was a lot of fun, everyone. And tell your mom hi for me, Kay, she added, patting Todoroki on his shoulder. He nodded, a small smile on his face. I will, thanks. Thank you very much, Izuku said with a bow before looking gratefully at Kenichi. Kenichi grinned. Anytime, kid. Ochako watched the insignificant exchange with nervous suspicion but said nothing. She swallowed, hugging her parents once more before the door shut and they were headed back to the station. She blew out of breath, not wanted her nerves to ruin a good evening. And it really had been so much fun. It was always uplifting to see her parents, and with a few of her closest friends, it just make it all the more of a happy occasion. She was glad, she really was. This happiness was what she was trying to preserve and defend by becoming a hero. Coming and seeing her parents was a good reminder of that. The group chatted merrily as they walked, complimenting Ochako on the kind and joyful nature of her parents, as if she'd had anything to do with it. Well, I guess I get it from them then. Ochako replied with a wide smile. It certainly suits you, Iida said. It doesn't happen too often that you're not smiling, Ochako, Suyu added. Ochako shrugged, turning a bit more thoughtful. I think I'd rather have a smile on my face when things get hard, ya know. Push through those walls and go plus ultra. A positive attitude is the key, I think. Indeed. As the conversation moved on, Ochako noticed that Izuku was quiet as they walked, seemingly absorbed in his own thoughts. She gulped again, wondering what it was her dad had talked to him about, and hoping on hope that it wasn't about her. Once they got to the train, it was far more crowded inside than it had been on the ride over. There were still open seats, but they were spread out from each other, meaning they couldn't sit together as a group. Ochako moved to follow behind Suyu when Izuku tapped her shoulder lightly. She looked up, questioning as she felt herself sweat a bit. "Mind if I talk to you for a bit?" he asked quietly as the rest found their seats. Her heart all but seized up as her face warmed. Sure. He nodded with a small smile before heading over to a couple empty seats further away from where the rest of their group had sat. Ochako swallowed dryly, cursing her dad with everything she had. What did he say to him? Why now? Her brain was running through anything and everything he could possibly want to talk about, and she was almost certain she was going to short-circuit before he even got a word out. She sat by the window as Izuku took the seat just next to her. The doors shut and the train began to move. Still silence stretched over them as it looked like he was considering where to start. Ochako bit her lip, thinking of all the ways she might defuse the situation, but at the same time was feeling far too curious. Uraraka, I've been thinking about some stuff, and I kinda wanted to talk to you about it, he said hesitantly, looking up at her. She swallowed again. Oh boy. She tried to smile, wanting to ease some of the discomfort between them. What about? Izuku frowned a bit. That, actually. Ochako blinked. Huh. He clasped his hands together. Well, that smile you have, it hides a lot of your negative emotions underneath it, right? I've been seeing that more and more, and that you're hiding behind it, especially when you're talking with me. She felt her heart drop past her stomach. He could tell. She really shouldn't be surprised. He was pretty observant, but still. Ochako stared at her knees, unable to think of something to say. Izuku glanced at her with a smile before looking forward again. If it's all right with you, I'll just say what I've been thinking about. If you wanna talk more after thinking it over, I'd be really happy if you could find me later to talk. Ochako clasped her hands together and nodded, grateful for the out. He was obviously going to speak his mind, so it was relieving to be able to just listen. She was so caught off guard she was sure she wouldn't be able to clearly convey the thoughts she was having anyway. I don't think it's a bad thing, to smile when you don't feel like you can. I do the same thing. I need to be the kind of hero I want to be, but there are times when it's better to let it go and share it with someone else. Izuku said, his words firm and tentative at the same time. I didn't think what I noticed from you was a big deal, and maybe I'm making it out to be more of one now. But since we were up in the mountains, I've been thinking about it a lot. It really seems you don't want anyone to see past the smile, that you want to deal with everything on your own. I first noticed it at the sports festival last year. Sorry, but after I left, I overheard you crying. Ochako squeezed her hands together, keeping her eyes trained on her knees as her heart beat faster. Sorry about eavesdropping, and sorry I didn't say anything till now too. She shook her head. You don't have, Ta. Izuku smiled sadly at her. Noticing all that, I've been thinking about what I've done to help. We haven't been very close friends since last year. I'm not sure what happened, but we didn't spend as much time together as before. Me and Iida talked more with Todoroki, and you with Asuyu and the other girls, which is fine, but I didn't notice that had happened until we were teamed up for the wilderness survival training. And I'm sorry about that too. Ochako bit her lip, guilt weighing on her. It wasn't his fault, not even in the slightest. Yes, he didn't seem to notice when she'd pulled away from him, but he couldn't have known what was going on in her head. Her heart thumped as she thought of how Aoyama's words had stirred up all those feelings within her, changing too much. She bowed her head further, deciding not to speak yet. The smile faded from his face as he too looked down at his hands. I didn't say anything back at the sports festival because I didn't know how to bring it up again, and there was so much going on, I hate to say it slipped my mind. He trailed off, emotion audible in his voice. You were trying to be there for me, and I basically forgot to do the same for you. Ochako finally looked up, worry replacing her embarrassment. It was causing him this much stress. She could see the shine of moisture in his eyes as he looked at his hands. I've been kind of a poor friend lately, so I understand why you didn't want to share your troubles with me during the survival exercise, or that you didn't. Trust me, but I hope there's people you do trust with that sort of thing. It's not good to carry so much on your own. He sniffed, looking up again as he placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. But if you feel like you can trust me, I'd be happy to be someone you can rely on. Ochako stared at him, feeling her own tears begin to well up in her eyes. He thinks I don't trust him. He thinks he's a bad friend. It made her sick to think she'd let him think that. She struggled to find some words, anything. But nothing would come out. Before she could even try to speak, the train came to a stop. Now arriving at Mustafu Station. Please watch your step. Thank you very much. Izuku stood from his seat, pulling his backpack onto his back. With a tentative smile, he bowed his head and moved off to meet up with the others. Ochako sat back in her seat for a moment, feeling the weight of all of that sit squarely on her chest. A couple tears fell from her eyes as she blinked, trying to catch her breath. There's no way I'm going to let him believe all that, she thought determinedly. She wiped the tears away and stood up, following him off the train. Where stories live. Discover now.